1045, the team, your home for New York Jets football. We go to our man Connor Hughes. He covers the Jets for NJ.com. Connor, two-part question. Why Josh McCown, and do you like it?
I guess I'll take the first one first, and the Jets have obviously made this move because they know that they need a veteran quarterback. You know, they know that Josh McCown wasn't necessarily, I think, their first, second, third, fourth, or even fifth option. I mean, this was a team that went after Mike Glennon before he was signed away by the Chicago Bears, and they just offered him too much money. They wanted Brian Hoyer, but he wanted Kyle Shanahan, so he's over there. And Tyrod Taylor was a guy that they had some interest in, but he returned to the Bills. So things just didn't really shake out for the Jets here in the early portions of free agency. So they were left with guys like potentially Jay Cutler, potentially Colin Kaepernick, potentially Robert Griffin III, potentially Chase Daniel as well. But they elected to go with Josh McCown. And he checks some of the boxes for what they want. I mean, this is a guy that has played before in the NFL. He's had some form of success. He has some experience. He has a connection with Jeremy Bates, the Jets' new quarterback coach. And the Jets have had interest in Josh McCown before. People forget that they met with him at the Combine in 2015. They expressed some interest in potentially trading for him before they re-signed Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. So, Mike McCagnon's familiar with him. He should be a good mentor for Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg, and we'll see where, what comes of it. But they wanted him because he fits what they need. They need a veteran guy that can mentor Hackenberg and Petty, and that's exactly what Josh McCown is. Now, do I necessarily agree with the move? To a point, yeah. I think that he can bring some things to the table, like I said, that the Jets need. But in my opinion, actually, I'm kind of curious why they didn't elect to go with Chase Daniel instead of Josh McCown. They had McCown in for a visit over the weekend. They had Chase Daniel in for a visit on Monday, and they elected to sign McCown. And for me, I see the connection with maybe Daniel being a little bit better. A guy that has some experience with Sean Payton. I think he played 4 years for the Saints, and Payton's a guy that obviously Jets' new coordinator, John Morton, figures to build an offense very similar to. If not anything, it's Morton's offense is probably going to have a little bit of a West Coast feel, and Daniel has experience in that, playing in Kansas City with Andy Reid, then again with the Eagles, and Daniel's a little bit younger than Josh McCown, so he has some experience there too. We'll see what ends up happening there, and why they didn't go there. So we'll see. But I like the move. I think it's a good one for the Jets.
Is the reasoning for McCown over Daniel just the fact that he had started before in the NFL, and Chase Daniel really hasn't had that moment where he's been a team's franchise quarterback?
Maybe. I mean, that could certainly play for it. It could also be because the Jets want to come in here with a truly wide open approach. They want to have an entirely wide open quarterback competition, and maybe Chase Daniel's looking for an opportunity where he's going to be more guaranteed the starting spot. I mean, if you think about Chase, this is a guy who went to Philly because he thought he was going to have an opportunity to compete for the job, and he found out that he's the third-string quarterback. Then all of a sudden Sam Bradford just traded, and he's like, okay, well, that's fine. I guess I'll start until Carson's ready. Then the Eagles just hand Carson the job. So he got a lot of money from the Eagles, but he got kind of a raw deal there with wanting to start. So I think that might have played a little bit of a role where maybe he went in there saying, I want to start, and the Jets weren't necessarily giving him that opportunity to, guaranteeing him that spot. But it also could have come down to money. I mean, if you remember, Chase Daniel just came off a deal where he signed a 3-year, $21 million contract with the Eagles, getting like $8 or $9 million a year. Maybe he wanted $8 to $10 million if he was going to be the Jets starting quarterback, and the Jets got Josh McCown for $6 million, essentially a 1-year, $6 million deal. So maybe the financial terms didn't work out. I'm not terribly sure why the Jets elected to go with McCown over him, but they did their homework on both of them, and they probably could have had whichever one of their choice, and they elected and they chose McCown, and we'll see if it works.
NJ.com's Connor Hughes with us right now, 104.5. The team going over this Josh McCown thing. Why not the Colin Kaepernick or RG3? Like, what we know, both of them said they had interest in the Jets. Why didn't the Jets have interest in them?
I think Robert Griffin probably isn't necessarily what the Jets are looking for in a quarterback right now. I think that they want somebody that's going to be a mentor for their young guys. They want somebody that's probably going to be a little more stable, and that's not really Robert. Robert's kind of has his injury concerns. He's not necessarily a mentor-type quarterback. I mean, I think the Jets wanted somebody who had some experience, and Robert also is probably best in that hybrid option running kind of offense. And if the Jets are trying to build an offense with John Morton that looks a little bit like the Saints, has a little bit of a West Coast feel, that doesn't necessarily work to Robert's strengths. So I think that that's probably why they stepped away. And also, if you think about Robert Griffin as a quarterback, he's a polar opposite from Christian Hackenberg, who's that pocket, strong-armed guy, and then also Bryce Petty, who's more of a spread offense kind of quarterback. So I think that what you're looking at with Robert was just that it didn't match with what the Jets were looking for was not there. And the reasoning that it comes down to Colin Kaepernick and why the Jets never really made a realistic push to go sign him, I think honestly just comes down to what the Jets think Colin Kaepernick is as a quarterback. You know, you look at his stats last year, and I think it was 19 touchdowns and 6 picks, which are good, and he had like a 90 quarterback rating. But if you throw those stats aside and you just turn on 49ers games and you watch Colin Kaepernick play football, he was not a good quarterback last year. I mean, he was borderline bad. I watched that Jets 49ers game, and the Jets defense is not good at all. And you're watching Colin Kaepernick miss throws over the middle, rush throws, bounce passes. I mean, he was just not a good quarterback. He resembled nothing of the guy that tore up the NFL in 2012 and 2013. So, you know, I know there's a lot of talk out there about potential off-field things keeping teams from pursuing Colin, you know, the sitting during the national anthem, and I know he wore, you know, questionable socks the one day to 49ers practice, and I'm sure with some teams that plays a role, but with the Jets, I don't see that as a reason they didn't pursue him. I think that the Jets truly watched the film, got a whole week of prepping and preparing for Colin Kaepernick, and realized this guy right now, for whatever reason, just is not a very good quarterback. He's not a great mentor, and also, like Robert, doesn't fit what the Jets are looking for. I mean, the Jets want, with who they have and the offense they're building, a West Coast kind of prototypical pocket quarterback who maybe has a little mobility but is a throw-first guy, and that's just not Colin.
They carried 4 quarterbacks last year. Is that out of the question this year?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I'm not ruling out the Jets drafting Mitch Trubisky or Deshaun Watson. I mean, we're running something on in the Star Ledger tomorrow about this, and it's, you know, basically that nobody knows what Mike McCagnon's thinking because he doesn't leak stories. He keeps everything so close to heart, so nobody knows how he really feels about Trubisky or Watson. But I don't rule it out at all, the Jets drafting. I mean, if he falls in love with one of them and he doesn't really believe in Christian Hackenberg, I don't think McCagnon will think twice about going ahead and drafting one of those guys at number 6. I mean, the Jets have people at UNC's pro day right now, so you know they're getting a good look at Trubisky. So we'll see, you know, but I think that if they were to draft Deshaun Watson or Trubisky, what you're probably looking at in that regard is the Jets would then put Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg both on the trade block. Whoever they can get more for, they would trade, and they would keep the other one. So you'd have Josh McCown, Trubisky, or Watson, and then either or with Bryce Petty or Bryce Petty or Christian Hackenberg, and whichever guy nets the most return is the guy the Jets would trade.
Star Ledger's Connor Hughes with us right now, 104.5 The Team. All right, so the quarterback position addressed for now. What's next for the Jets? What are you hearing they're going to do?
We'll see. I think they're kind of poking around the second and third team options right now. I know Michael Rivera was in for a visit with the Jets. He's now left. I think it's the Colts, if I'm not mistaken, or the Lions. One of those two teams he's now off visiting as well. So he left his visit with the Jets without a contract. I think you could see something like that, them go after a second-tier, third-tier tight end. Maybe somebody like John Phillips is an option, or maybe they go out and they target the long shot with Larry Donnell. You know, I could also see him floating around in the safety market because you have questions about, Calvin Pryor, but also Marcus Gilchrist. You know, he tore his patellar tendon, and there's no guarantee he's ready for the start of the season, if at all, next year. You know, it's a very realistic possibility that Marcus Gilchrist doesn't play football in 2017, and the Jets don't really have another starting free safety on their roster. So you could see them going that direction as well. I know Jarius Byrd, the old Saints safety, is out there as well. You know, there's a couple other interesting names. The free agent market, you know, is kind of still pretty strong with potential safeties and stopgap filler safeties, so I could see them going there as well. But as far as flashy, big-name signings, you know, the Jets, they've got their quarterback, so it's not like they're going to go out there and sign Jay Cutler. You know, they've got their cornerback in Maurice Claiborne, so it's not like they're going to make a run at any of these other guys or trade for Tremaine Johnson. So we'll see what happens. But if it does, it's probably going to be like lower-name guys that you kind of say, oh, yeah, I know him, and they'll sign those players, not necessarily big, flashy, back-page stealing targets.
Connor Hughes, we appreciate your time, my man, and it's always fun when we get to talk about the Jets in the off season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's usually it's always interesting, to say the least.
Connor, we appreciate you, man, and look forward to checking out your stuff in the Star Ledger and NJ.com.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on.